Hey everybody, this is vlog 36. It is January 24th, 2013. I usually, well, if you were to, let's, Sherman set the Wayback Machine for, back when I first started these vlogs. I didn't ever have any notes or anything that I was going off of. I uh, I just I just kind of winged it, and and I realized that I was doing a lot of pausing, and wasn't the videos were long, but they were like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I noticed that I really wasn't saying a whole lot. So after about 10, 15 videos, I started making lists of bullet points of topics, things to talk about. Um, but this one, I don't have any. I don't have a list today. I just figured I'd wing it today. It's been about a week since my last update. Actually, I think it's been about 6 days, but whatever. I don't know. I just go by what YouTube tells me. However many days it's been since my last upload, so that's how that works. Um, I've been trying to find a way to actually get my webcam to be to capture frame rate better, because right now it's as you can tell, it's not running at a full 30 frames per second, or even 25 frames per second. Now the program I'm using is the program that came with my webcam, because I never really used my webcam on anything else other than Skype, and Google. I think it's Google Plus or Google something. I don't remember. Whatever the thing is with Google Plus, their video service, and it worked fine with those things. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's an open source piece of software that would work. I'm actually surprised I haven't even looked there yet. Usually, it's the first place I go when I'm looking for a piece of software, or to do a particular task. I usually go check out the open source sites like SourceForge and places like that, and see what coders and stuff, what kind of stuff they have cooking over there. Because a lot of the programs I use are actually open source programs, or they're free to use and edit as you wish programs, at least when I can get them, because I like to have full control of my applications. But that doesn't mean I don't. That doesn't mean that I dislike automation. Like my antivirus program, Avast, with an exclamation point, is very automated. Everything it does is automated. I don't touch it unless I want to scan a file, or if I'm actually personally running my own virus check. But it automatically searches everything whenever I go anywhere on the internet. It's constantly scanning every single thing. Now this does slow down my connection speed slightly, but it only does that for certain things, like for say websites that I visit often, like let's just say out of the blue, because hockey started back, NHL.com. I go there a lot, so it doesn't, because it saves all this information in the cookies and some of the stuff in the offline mode, so it doesn't have to load a whole lot of stuff when I go to NHL's webpage. But let's just say I go to a webpage that some webpage that has, I don't know, for some reason I'll get in the mood. I want to look at fantasy weapons that people have made, you know, I go to a site like that, the speeds will be a little slower because my antivirus program is scanning everything constantly. It does that for both my hard drive and my net connection and everything else that uses the TCP/IP or whatever the hell it's called, TCP/IP. I swear, I'm so old on mine. Used to know so much about that, but I've lost track. Hell, I used to write code when I was like 13 years old. I was writing code in C++ and screwing around in Fortran, and Basic. Yeah, a lot of Basic work. Basic is, if you guys don't know, it's a programming language. As is C++. C++ is a Microsoft programming language. Basic is well, it was, I don't know what it really is anymore. Like I said, I've gotten really out of doing that kind of stuff. But before it was a DOS, it was a good DOS programming system. That, and I remember I used to write bash files for DOS, and basically making GUIs, as they're called, GUIs, or graphical user interfaces. Basically, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you're obviously running Windows or OS 10 or some operating system. Well, the operating system is the GUI, is the graphical user interface. So I used to be able to design. Now in DOS, they didn't have the buttons you can click on, but I would create menus. Where it would be like, instead of having to type in code, type in everything like C / this and this / or backslash this backslash this, and to direct it to a particular location, like a path file. And instead of doing that, I would write these bash files where it would make it basically, you would have an option of, okay, there are 10 objects here, or there are 10 programs that you can run from this particular batch file, and you would just, instead of having to type out the whole thing, you could just hit 1 and enter for the first one. Or let's say you want to run the third one, is 3, you hit the number 3 and you hit enter, or A, B, C, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's whatever I programmed it to be. And I was, like I said, I was doing it when I was a kid. I mean, that's how I learned so much about computers. And always thought that's what I was going to go into, programming and computer engineering. I mean, I knew how to take apart and put together a computer when I was like 14. I had the benefit too because when I was younger, since my dad worked in the medical field, he was on the board for the IT department, as well as being a physician. Basically, he just kind of was sort of the supervisor. Well, not supervisor, but he reigned over the company, or that section of the company, and just kind of made sure they did things right. And because of that, we had a computer in the house. When most people owning a PC, that was just something ridiculous, you know. Or if you did own a PC, it was like an Apple II, you know. So, but anyway, that's all about that. There's 10 minutes of computer talk. Let's see. Let me think. Um, I went and saw my new psych. Psych. No, not psychologist, but psychiatrist. There we go. Ugh, I always get those words mixed up. Went and saw a new psychiatrist, and it's the second time I met him, or second time I've had an appointment with him, and because I've been having trouble with somnolence, and somnolence is it means a state of near sleep, which basically it's that feeling you feel, you know, like right before you fall asleep, like you just feel so tired, and just closing your eyes is restful feeling. That's sort of that state. Well, I would be in that state through the middle of the day, you know, and into the afternoon. I'm actually a little bit. We changed. Well, we didn't change any. We didn't change a med, but we took away one particular med that I was taking. And we're doing this as a control, so take one thing away, see what happens. Okay, if nothing happens, either replace it, or put it back where it was, or just keep it out of the system completely. So we decided to take a piece out of the puzzle and see how it works. I felt pretty good today. I mean, I woke up, I went to bed just after midnight last night, and I woke up exactly at noon today. No alarms or anything to help me wake up. I know that to most of you, you're probably thinking, "Wow, you sleep so late, you sleep so much." And I'm like, "Well, that's because I'm on a ton of sedatives. That's just what happens." You know, getting up early if I have to. I have to set multiple alarms on multiple devices just to get my ass out of bed. And I know somebody posted a question that what I'm in talking about how I was having amnesia, and that I was an amnesiac. Amnesiac is such a fun word. I really like that word. I don't know why. I guess it's because it's a word that exists that nobody really uses, because amnesia isn't exactly something that's terribly common. I guess is why we never hear it. But anyway, the med that we think is causing the amnesia could be the med that we took away from the picture. We're trying to find out. So we'll see in a few days, because this med takes a couple days to fully drain out of your system. And then we'll know whether or not that's what was causing it. I personally think it's another one of my meds that I take at night. But it's actually the med that I actually stopped, that we took out of the equation, is actually one of the oldest antipsychotic medications that was available. It was a drug. It's this drug called thiotixine. It's very old. I mean, very old in terms of mental health. So we're talking like, in the past 45, 50 years, which is actually that's still pretty far for pharmaceuticals, especially for mental health. It was that's what people took. Um, but even 45 years ago, 45 to 50 years ago, mental health wasn't really on anybody's radar. I mean, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't on the minds of the general public. Um, People who were dealing with it were actually um, the guys coming back from war, from World War II, and or during World War II, where guys would become in the like okay um, in the Pacific campaign, you'd have guys who would they'd go as they called them they would go Asiatic, um, just guys who would just they just would lose it completely, um, and just go crazy, literally just like they've completely lost their minds, um, act very unusual and whatnot, and so they gave them a term. They called them Asiatic, that they were suffering Asiatic symptoms, and then because of Asia, Asiatic, yeah, okay, you get it. But these guys were being sent back, and a lot of them were Marines, because most of the people over during the Pacific campaign, they were Marines. So they sent them back off the front lines, back to the naval vessels that were sitting out in the Pacific Ocean, and they would have them rest. They would call it combat fatigue, or just straight up, just what's this guy's problem? Oh, he's just tired. He's tired of what's going on, and that's why he's acting like this. Which now we think about it, and it's like, okay, well, if you would describe my issues, then it's like, what would I be called? You know, would I be Asiatic? Would I exhibit those symptoms? Probably not. But I guarantee you they wouldn't have me on the front lines. Hell no. I wouldn't be able to function. And the Army or the military's fix for people who couldn't function was, well, we'll just put you we'll sit you off on a boat or send you back a couple islands, and or if they were in Europe, occasionally it was a ticket home, but a lot of times it ended the opposite way. These guys would they'd commit suicide, because it was so simple. Because I mean, look, they're firing their gun constantly, you know, and they're killing so many people that the thought of another individual being killed, even if it was themselves, it had already gotten to the point of being just numb. So these guys would, they'd take their own lives, and very simply, I mean, there was one, I read a book. Well, I read lots of books. But there's a book that I read, it's called Helmet for My Pillow by Robert Lackey. And it tells his tale of when he was in the Pacific fighting with the Marines. And his book details what he did along the way, and how he lost his faith. Like when he left, he believed in God, and after he had been on the islands and through so many battles, and the things that he saw other people do, at one point he witnessed this guy who Robert was he was like a journalist before he left, before he shipped out to war. So he was a writer, and so he kept up sort of a library, because there's a lot of times when there's nothing to do. So what do? Well, here, have a book, read. Um, and he was tending to the library, and there was a guy who walked into the tent and then walked out the other side, and that was open, and it was raining. It was like downpouring, and the guy wasn't even noticing that it was raining really, because it rained so much over there. It really didn't matter. It was it was always raining. And this guy starts stripping off his clothes, his uniform, and Robert's like, hey man, what's going on, dude? What are you doing? Because he had sort of like that 1,000-yard stare, and so the guy completely strips naked, and he doesn't even look at Robert Lackey. He doesn't even look at him. He's 9 billion miles away, and he just takes his gun and takes a bite, and this happens like literally right in front of Lackey, and he talks about how it was just at that moment he realized that he felt that there is no deity because of just the depravity that he witnessed, and his own personal feelings that changed. So, I'm not saying every single Marine, who saw all this stuff is an atheist or something. No, I'm not pushing that agenda. Just because I personally am an atheist, I just find that story very interesting to me. A man whose faith was completely taken out of him because of the war. And that happened to a lot of people. But there's also the opposite, where some people who actually their faith helped them through the war, and then they kept to their faith even once the war was over. So, you've got both sides. But anyway, let's see, it's over 20 minutes. First 10 talking about computer stuff, second 10 talking about the war in the Pacific. Slightly mentioning a bit about my psychiatrist. But so anyway, yeah, that's what we're doing with my psychiatrist. Just taking one pill out for the moment, seeing how that works. And like I said, I felt pretty damn good today. Actually felt better today than I felt the past couple days. So, trying to think if there's anything else I could update you guys on, but I don't really think I have anything else. So, I'll just sign off. See you guys later.